3 sharp knocks on my front door that Tuesday morning changed everything. 9 days after my son's wedding, I opened the door to find my new daughter-in-law Amanda standing there with a stone-faced man in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. Amanda's smile was cold as ice. The lawyer introduced himself as Gerald Thornton. Amanda said sweetly, "We need to talk about your late wife's money, Keegan. All $45 million of it." My blood ran cold. Nobody was supposed to know about that. The lawyer opened his briefcase. "Let me back up 3 months to help you understand how I ended up in this nightmare. My name is Keegan Walsh, and I'm 67 years old. I've lived in the same house in suburban Connecticut for 32 years. For the past 2 years, I'd been a widower after my beloved wife Eleanor died of cancer. Watching her fade away over those 18 months was the hardest thing I'd ever endured. Eleanor wasn't just my wife. She was my best friend, my partner, the person who made me laugh even on the darkest days. What most people didn't know was that Eleanor had been a brilliant tech entrepreneur. She'd started a software company from our garage back in the 90s, building educational programs for schools. The company grew slowly but steadily over 2 decades. 6 months before she died, a major tech corporation bought her company for an amount that made my head spin. After taxes and various expenses, I inherited $45 million. Eleanor made me promise to keep it quiet. She'd seen what happened to lottery winners and people who suddenly came into wealth. The parasites came out of the woodwork, the scammers, the long-lost relatives. She wanted me to live comfortably, invest the money conservatively, and eventually pass it to our son Tyler when the time was right, not before. She wanted Tyler to build his own character, his own work ethic, his own life. She believed that giving young people too much money too soon destroyed them. I honored her wishes. I kept living in our modest 3-bedroom house. I drove my 12-year-old pickup truck. I shopped at the same grocery store, attended the same church, lived the same quiet life I'd always lived. The only difference was the security of knowing I'd never have to worry about money again, and that Tyler would be taken care of after I was gone. My son Tyler was 34 years old and taught history at the local high school. He made about $48,000 a year, which isn't much in Connecticut, but he loved his job. He loved working with kids, inspiring them to think critically about the past and the present. Tyler had always been a good kid. He never asked me for money. He lived modestly in a small apartment, drove a sensible used car, and seemed genuinely happy with his life. That made me proud. Eleanor would have been proud too. Everything changed 6 months before Tyler's wedding, when he brought someone home to meet me. Her name was Amanda, and she was 29 years old. I have to admit, she was beautiful. Long dark hair, perfect smile, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. Tyler was clearly smitten, practically glowing as he introduced us. Amanda told me she worked as a freelance marketing consultant, helping small businesses build their online presence. She was charming and polite, asking me questions about myself, complimenting my home, saying all the right things, but I noticed details that bothered me. Her handbag was a designer brand that cost at least $3,000. I knew because Eleanor had looked at similar bags once and decided they were ridiculous. Amanda's nails were professionally manicured, her clothes were expensive, and she wore perfume that I later learned cost $200 an ounce. For someone who worked freelance, she seemed to have a lot of money. But what really bothered me was watching them together. When they went out to dinner, Tyler always paid. When they went to movies or events, Tyler paid. Amanda would smile and thank him sweetly, but she never once reached for her wallet. Eleanor's sister Martha came to visit about a month after I met Amanda. Martha had always been sharp as a tack, a retired accountant who didn't miss much. After Amanda and Tyler left from dinner at my house, Martha sat me down at the kitchen table. "Something's off about that girl," she said, stirring her coffee slowly. I asked what she meant, though I'd had my own concerns. "Too many questions," Martha said. She asked about Eleanor's career, about the house, about what Eleanor left behind, and I saw her taking pictures of rooms when she thought nobody was watching. Who does that in someone else's home? I dismissed it at the time, told Martha she was being paranoid, that Amanda was just interested in our family history. But Martha's words stuck with me like a splinter I couldn't quite remove. The wedding planning started 3 months later. Amanda wanted an extravagant wedding at a country club, $50,000 for the whole event. Ice sculptures, live band, premium open bar, filet mignon for 200 guests. Tyler looked increasingly stressed every time they discussed the budget. His teacher's salary couldn't possibly cover it. I offered to contribute $10,000 to help them out, thinking it was a reasonable amount for the father of the groom. Amanda declined with a cool smile, saying her family would cover the costs. She said it in a way that made me feel small, like my 10,000 was an insult. The strange thing was, I never met her family. Not once during the entire engagement. She claimed they lived overseas, traveling constantly for business. Said they couldn't make it back for the engagement party, couldn't make it for the bridal shower, would probably barely make it to the wedding itself. The wedding day arrived in late June. It was held at the Riverside Country Club, one of the most expensive venues in the county. Everything was exactly as Amanda wanted. The weather cooperated with perfect sunshine and a light breeze. 200 guests filled the white chairs on the lawn overlooking the water. Amanda's side of the seating was surprisingly sparse, maybe 30 people total. She claimed her family had last-minute emergencies and couldn't attend. Her maid of honor was a woman named Jessica, who Amanda introduced as someone she'd met recently through work. The whole thing felt staged, like a beautiful movie set with no substance behind the scenery. During the father-son dance, Tyler held on to me a little tighter than usual. As we swayed to the music, he whispered in my ear, "Dad, Amanda's amazing, but sometimes I feel like I don't really know her." My heart sank, but I forced a smile. "Marriage is a journey of discovery," I said. "You'll learn more about each other every day." What else could I say? It was his wedding day. I wasn't going to plant seeds of doubt in that moment. After the reception ended, and most guests had left, Amanda pulled me aside near the coat check. She took my hand in both of hers and looked up at me with those big brown eyes. "Thank you so much for being so generous to Tyler over the years," she said. "He's told me how much you've supported him." The phrasing struck me as odd. I'd supported Tyler emotionally, certainly, but I hadn't given him large sums of money or bought him cars or paid for his apartment. He'd earned everything himself. Then Amanda added, "Tyler told me his mother was quite successful before she passed. You must be very proud of everything she accomplished." I gave a non-committal answer, something about Eleanor being a remarkable woman. But I noticed Amanda's eyes narrow slightly, like she was analyzing my response, looking for information I wasn't giving. Tyler and Amanda left for their honeymoon in Aruba the next day. Tyler had asked me to water the plants in their apartment while they were gone, so I had a key. On the third day, I went over to check on things. Everything seemed fine until I noticed Amanda's small desk in the corner of their bedroom. One of the drawers was slightly open. I'm not proud of what I did next, but something made me pull that drawer open. Inside was a folder. A thick folder filled with printed documents. My hands started shaking as I flipped through them. Articles about Eleanor's company sale. Property records showing the value of my house. A list of banks in Connecticut. Printed screenshots of LinkedIn profiles including mine. There was even a family tree diagram with Tyler's name at the center, my name above it, and Eleanor's name next to mine with a star and the words Tech Sale 45M, written in red ink. My stomach dropped, like I'd been pushed off a building. She knew. Somehow, Amanda had researched Eleanor's business, tracked the sale, and figured out that I had money. A lot of money. I took photos of everything with my phone, put the folder back exactly as I'd found it, and left the apartment. My mind was racing during the drive home. Was this why Amanda married Tyler? Had she targeted him specifically because of me? Because of Eleanor's money? I called Martha that night and told her everything. She listened quietly, then said 3 words that chilled me to the bone. "She's a predator." Tyler and Amanda returned from Aruba 9 days after the wedding. That was when my world truly collapsed. Tyler called me from work on a Tuesday morning, his voice sounding strained and strange. "Dad, Amanda needs to talk to you about something important. Can she come by your house this afternoon?" I asked what it was about, but Tyler said Amanda would explain. He sounded uncomfortable, like someone with a gun to his back, reading from a script. Amanda showed up an hour later, but she wasn't alone. She had brought Gerald Thornton, attorney at law. And that's where my story really begins. Gerald Thornton sat in my living room like he owned the place, spreading documents across my coffee table with practiced efficiency. Amanda sat beside him, and the sweet, charming daughter-in-law from the wedding had completely vanished. In her place was someone cold and calculating, with eyes like a shark circling prey. Thornton was probably in his 50s, with silver hair slicked back and a suit that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. He spoke in that smooth, condescending way that expensive lawyers use when they want you to know they're smarter than you. "Mr. Walsh," he began, not bothering with pleasantries, "we're here to discuss fair distribution of marital assets." I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Tyler isn't married to me," I said. "He's married to Amanda." Thornton smiled, showing teeth that were too white and too perfect. "Of course. But Amanda believes that Tyler is entitled to financial support from his father. Connecticut law supports adult children in certain circumstances, particularly when there's a demonstrated pattern of financial withholding, despite ability to provide. The legal jargon was meant to intimidate me, but I cut through it. What exactly are you talking about? That's when Amanda dropped the bomb. She leaned forward, placing her hands on her knees, and spoke in a voice dripping with false sweetness. I know you inherited $45 million from Eleanor, Keegan. I've done my research. Eleanor's company sale was public record once I knew where to look. And I believe you're hoarding that money while your son struggles on a teacher's salary. That's financial abuse. It's emotionally manipulative. Tyler deserves better. My face must have shown my shock because Thornton jumped in immediately. We're not here to threaten you, Mr. Walsh. We simply want what's fair. Tyler is your only child. He's worked hard his entire life. Never asked you for anything. And meanwhile, you've been sitting on a fortune that could change his life. I found my voice, though my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Eleanor's wishes were clear. The money was to be kept quiet, invested safely, and passed to Tyler when I die. She didn't want him to lose his work ethic or become a target for people who only wanted his money. Amanda actually laughed. It was a bitter, harsh sound, controlling from beyond the grave. That's what that is. Did Eleanor own you, Keegan? Did she tell you how to think? How to live? How to treat your own son? The insult to Eleanor made my blood boil, but I kept my composure. Eleanor loved Tyler more than anything. She wanted him to be strong, independent, to build his own character. That's a convenient excuse for being cheap, Amanda shot back. Tyler has student loans from college. Did you know that? $32,000 in debt. You could pay that off with pocket change, but you don't. You let him struggle. Tyler had never told me about the loans. He'd always said he was managing fine. I felt a pang of guilt, but then I remembered the folder in Amanda's desk. This wasn't about helping Tyler. This was about getting access to Eleanor's money. Thornton slid papers across the table toward me. These are draft legal documents, a lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress. We would argue that you've deliberately withheld information about family wealth from Tyler, causing him psychological harm. We would also contact the media, make this story public. Elderly widower sitting on fortune while his son barely makes ends meet. How do you think that will look? The threat was clear. They were going to destroy my reputation if I didn't pay up. And how much would make you go away? I asked, my voice harder than I expected. $3 million, Amanda said immediately, as Tyler's rightful share. An advance on his inheritance. We're being reasonable. $3 million. Reasonable. The words didn't belong in the same sentence. I stood up, my 67-year-old knees protesting slightly. The money is legally mine. Tyler will inherit everything when I die, and I intend to live a long time. I'm not being extorted. Get out of my house. Amanda's mask dropped completely. The sweetness vanished, replaced by cold rage. You don't know who you're dealing with, old man. We're not leaving empty-handed. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Tyler walked in, home early from work. He looked exhausted, confused, his tie loosened, and his hair disheveled. He stopped when he saw all of us standing in the living room, documents spread across the table. What's going on? He asked. Amanda's transformation was instantaneous. The rage disappeared, replaced by tears that welled up in her eyes. Her voice became small and hurt. Honey, we're just trying to help secure our future. Your father has money, a lot of money, that he's been hiding from you. We just want him to help us, to help you. Is that so wrong? Tyler looked at me, and I saw confusion and hurt in his eyes. Dad? I tried to explain, tried to tell him about Eleanor's wishes, about the plan to pass everything to him eventually. But Thornton interrupted, his voice smooth and practiced. Your mother made a fortune before she died, Tyler. $45 million. Your father inherited it all and never told you. While you've been working 60-hour weeks for teachers' pay, he's been sitting on enough money to change your life forever. Tyler's face went pale. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Is that true? It's more complicated than that, I started, but Tyler cut me off. Is it true? Did Mom's company sell for millions? Do you have that money? I couldn't lie to my son. Yes, but Eleanor wanted it kept private. She had good reasons. Tyler's expression shifted from confusion to something that looked like betrayal. You've known I've been struggling. You've seen me worry about money, and you never said anything? Amanda moved to Tyler's side, placing a hand on his arm protectively. She looked at me with triumph in her eyes, then touched her stomach in a meaningful way that made Tyler's eyes widen. "There's something else we need to tell you, Keegan," she said softly. "I'm 8 weeks pregnant. We're having a baby." The news hit Tyler like a physical blow. He clearly hadn't known. His mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Amanda continued, her voice becoming stronger. "We need to think about our baby's future now. This isn't just about us anymore. Your father is choosing money over his own grandchild. He's being selfish." Thornton added fuel to the fire. "Connecticut law recognizes that grandparents have certain financial obligations under specific circumstances. If a grandchild's welfare is at stake, and the grandparent has means, the court can compel support." It was coordinated. Perfectly timed. Amanda had planned the pregnancy announcement for maximum impact. I watched my son's face as he processed everything, saw the confusion and anger and hurt all mixing together. "Tyler," I said, trying to reach him, "this isn't what it looks like. Your mother and I had a plan. You were always going to inherit everything. But she wanted you to build your own life first, to know your own worth separate from money." "I needed help, Dad," Tyler said, his voice breaking slightly. "I've needed help, and you just watched me struggle." "You never asked," I said weakly. "I shouldn't have to ask my own father for help when he's sitting on millions." Tyler's voice rose, louder than I'd ever heard it. "What kind of person does that?" Amanda pulled Tyler closer, whispered something in his ear. He nodded. Then they both looked at me with identical expressions of disappointment. Thornton gathered his papers slowly, making a show of it. "We'll be filing official documents by the end of the week. I strongly suggest you reconsider your position, Mr. Walsh. For your grandchild's sake, if not for your son's." They left together, Tyler walking out without looking back. Amanda glanced over her shoulder at me, and for just a second, I saw her smile. A cold, victorious smile that sent ice through my veins. The front door closed, and I stood alone in my living room. The silence was deafening. I had just lost my son, and I had no idea how to get him back. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I tried calling Tyler 18 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. I texted him, begging him to talk to me, to let me explain properly. No response. Finally, on the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to Tyler's apartment, hoping to catch him after work. Amanda answered the door. She was wearing yoga pants and one of Tyler's old college sweatshirts, looking completely at home and comfortable. When she saw me, her expression hardened. "He doesn't want to see you," she said flatly. "He's my son. I need to talk to him. Your son is done being manipulated by you. Leave us alone, Keegan." She started to close the door. I put my hand against it, not forcefully, just to stop it. "Amanda, please. Whatever you think is happening here, you're wrong. I love Tyler. I've always loved him." She looked at my hand on her door, then up at my face. "If you loved him, you wouldn't have let him struggle while you lived like a king. If you loved him, you'd put your grandchild's welfare first. But you only love yourself and your dead wife's money." The door slammed in my face. I heard the deadbolt turn. Through the door I could hear Tyler's voice asking who it was, and Amanda's response, "Just someone trying to sell something." I stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of every one of my 67 years. A neighbor peeked out from across the hallway, then quickly ducked back inside when I looked her way. The humiliation burned through me like acid. The drive home was a blur. I barely remember it. When I got back to my house, I sat in Eleanor's favorite chair and stared at her photograph on the mantel. She was smiling in that picture, taken on our 25th anniversary. Her eyes were bright with life and love. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the photograph. "I don't know what to do." The next week brought a new nightmare. Amanda launched what I can only describe as a social media warfare campaign. She started posting vague messages on her accounts. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you worst. And protecting your peace means cutting out toxic family members, even when it's hard, and some people value money more than their own blood. She never mentioned me by name, but Tyler's friends knew. The community knew. People I'd known for years started looking at me differently at the grocery store. At church, conversations would stop when I walked up. Someone I'd served on the volunteer board with for 15 years crossed to the other side of the street to avoid talking to me. Martha called me every day to check on me, but she was dealing with her own concerns. She'd been having chest pains and her doctor wanted her to reduce stress. I felt guilty every time I talked to her, knowing I was adding to her worries. Then Martha called with news that made my blood run cold. She'd been doing some investigating, using her connections from her accounting days and her natural talent for research. "Keegan, Amanda's LinkedIn profile only goes back 2 years. Before that, there's nothing. I called the university she claims to have attended. They have no record of anyone with her name graduating during the years she listed. The companies she says she's worked for as a freelance consultant, I called 4 of them. None of them have ever heard of her. What does that mean? I asked, though I was starting to have a terrible suspicion. It means Amanda isn't who she says she is. Everything about her is fake. The situation escalated fast after that. Gerald Thornton filed actual legal documents with the court. But it wasn't just the emotional distress lawsuit anymore. Now he was claiming that I had manipulated Eleanor on her deathbed, that I'd pressured her to change her will to cut out provisions for future grandchildren. It was a complete fabrication, but there it was in official legal documents. The local newspaper picked up the story. The headline made me feel sick. Wealthy widower sued by son's pregnant wife. They interviewed Thornton, who gave quotes about justice for vulnerable young families being taken advantage of by controlling elder relatives. They didn't interview me. I hadn't realized they were running the story until I saw it in print. My reputation, built over decades of quiet living and community involvement, crumbled in days. The hardware store where I'd shopped for 20 years suddenly had employees who were always too busy to help me. The coffee shop where I got breakfast every Saturday started getting my order wrong every time. My mechanic, who'd serviced my truck for years, told me he was too booked up to see me when I needed an oil change. Then Tyler called. Finally. His voice on the phone was cold, distant, like he was talking to a stranger instead of his father. I never knew you could be so heartless, Dad, he said without preamble. All my life, I thought you were a good man, someone I could look up to, but Amanda showed me the truth. What truth? I asked. Tyler, please listen to me. She showed me documentation. Mom's will. You convinced her to leave everything to you with no provisions for me until you died. Do you know how that makes me feel? Like I wasn't even important to my own mother. That's not true. Your mother loved you more than life itself. She wanted you to have everything, but she wanted you to be ready for it. She wanted you to develop your own strength first. I've been strong my entire life. Tyler's voice rose. I worked my way through college. I became a teacher even though it doesn't pay well because I wanted to make a difference. I've never asked you for anything. And you sat at my wedding knowing you could change my life, and you said nothing. Amanda's right about you. Amanda is lying to you, son. She's not who you think she is. Don't talk about my wife like that. She loves me. She's carrying my child. She's the only person who's been honest with me. The irony was devastating. Tyler thought Amanda was the honest one. He thought I was the liar. Tyler, please, let me show you something. Let me prove to you that Amanda has been researching our family, looking for money. I found documents in your apartment. You went through our things? His voice was incredulous. You violated our privacy? What else have you done, Dad? Have you been spying on us? Everything I said was being twisted, turned against me. I could feel Tyler slipping further away with every word. I love you, I said finally, desperately. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone tells you, I love you, and I always have. There was a long silence. Then Tyler said quietly, if that's true, you have a strange way of showing it. He hung up. Martha kept digging, and what she found was even more disturbing. She discovered a newspaper article from Ohio, dated 5 years earlier. A woman named Amanda Prescott had scammed an elderly couple out of $200,000. She'd married their grandson, claimed to be pregnant, extracted the money from the grandparents who were desperate to help their future great-grandchild, then disappeared. The charges had been dropped due to insufficient evidence. The photo in the article looked exactly like Tyler's Amanda, but the last name was different. Amanda Sheffield, the article called her. Martha sent me the article immediately, along with a note, same person, different name, she's done this before. While I was processing this information, something even worse happened. I got an alert from my bank about suspicious activity. Someone had attempted to access my accounts using forged documents. The signature was a pretty good imitation of mine, but the bank's fraud detection system caught it. I filed a police report, but the detective assigned to the case seemed skeptical. These cases are very difficult to prove, Mr. Walsh, he said. Even if we identify who attempted the fraud, showing intent and knowledge is tough. Could be someone stole your information. Could be a lot of things. The stress was literally killing me. I have a heart condition, a mild arrhythmia that's usually controlled with medication. But stress can trigger episodes. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. with my heart racing, my chest tight, unable to catch my breath. I called 911, and the ambulance took me to the emergency room. The ER doctor ran tests and adjusted my medication. He was a young guy, maybe in his 30s, and he looked at me with concern that went beyond my immediate medical situation. Mr. Walsh, your heart is showing signs of extreme stress. Whatever is going on in your life, you need to find a way to reduce the pressure. Your heart can't take much more of this. I'm serious. Next time, it could be a full cardiac event. I called Tyler from the hospital. It went to voicemail. Tyler, I'm in the hospital. My heart. I'm okay, but I wanted you to know. I waited 3 hours. No call back. Martha came to the hospital instead. She looked pale and worried, and I felt guilty for putting that burden on her. Then something unexpected happened. While I was lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely, my phone rang. It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Mr. Walsh? My name is Patricia Henderson. I'm calling from Oregon. I saw the news story about your situation online, and I need to talk to you about Amanda. My heart rate picked up again, and the monitor next to my bed started beeping faster. I took a deep breath to calm myself. What about Amanda? I asked. That woman married my brother 3 years ago. Same person, I'm sure of it from the photo in the article. She did the exact same thing to our family, claimed she was pregnant, manipulated my brother into demanding money from our elderly parents. My parents gave in, handed over $150,000 to keep peace in the family. Amanda disappeared 2 months later with all the money. No baby. There was never a baby. My brother filed for divorce. We never saw her or the money again. I sat up straighter in the hospital bed despite the wires and tubes attached to me. Are you absolutely certain it's the same person? I'm looking at the news photo right now. That's her. But here's the thing, Mr. Walsh. Amanda isn't even her real name. My brother's private investigator tracked her down eventually. Her real name is Sarah Nichols. She's done this at least 4 times that we know of, maybe more. She targets men with wealthy parents, marries them, fakes a pregnancy, manipulates the family for money, then disappears. She's a professional con artist. Patricia gave me her brother's contact information and promised to send me everything they had on Amanda, or Sarah, or whatever her real name was. I thanked her, hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope, and beneath that, I felt anger. A cold, focused anger at what this woman was doing to my son, to my family, to me. Amanda had picked the wrong family to scam. The lawsuit moved forward with frightening speed. Despite the evidence that Amanda might be a con artist, despite the information Patricia had sent me from Oregon, Gerald Thornton was slick and well-connected. The judge assigned to our case turned out to be an old colleague of Thornton's from law school. I later learned they played golf together every month at the same country club. My lawyer, a decent guy named Robert Chen, who I'd found through a legal referral service, looked increasingly worried as the pre-trial proceedings developed. We met in his small office in downtown Hartford, and he didn't sugarcoat the situation. Keegan, this case is being fast-tracked in a way I've never seen before. Usually, a civil suit like this would take 6 to 9 months to get to trial. We're looking at 3 weeks. The judge is pushing everything through at lightning speed. Something isn't right. Can we object? Can we ask for more time? Robert shook his head. We've tried. Judge denied every motion for extension. Says the alleged hardship to the plaintiffs requires swift resolution. The first major blow came when Thornton filed an emergency motion for a temporary asset freeze. He argued that there was reasonable suspicion of elder abuse and undue influence in how Eleanor's will had been written. The judge, without even holding a full hearing, granted a freeze on half of my accounts pending investigation. In one stroke of a pen, I lost access to $22 million of my own money. I had to live on my savings and Social Security check, which together came to about $3,000 a month. For someone who'd been financially comfortable, the sudden restriction felt like a noose tightening around my neck. Paying Robert's legal fees became nearly impossible. His hourly rate was $350, and we were burning through hours fast. I had to make the agonizing decision to sell Eleanor's jewelry collection. She'd collected beautiful pieces over the years, not because they were expensive, but because each one had a memory attached to it. The gold locket she wore every day, the one with Tyler's baby picture inside, sold for $8,000. I cried when I handed it to the jeweler. Each piece I sold felt like I was betraying Eleanor's memory, but I needed the money to fight the people trying to destroy us. Then Thornton subpoenaed Eleanor's medical records. He claimed he needed them to prove she'd been mentally incompetent when she'd updated her will shortly before her death. The violation of Eleanor's privacy, even after death, made me feel physically ill. When the records arrived, they showed exactly what I knew they would. Eleanor had been completely lucid and mentally sharp until the final week of her life. Her oncologist had documented her mental state repeatedly. She'd been weak physically, in pain, dying, but her mind had been clear. Thornton didn't care about the truth. He spun the records anyway, claiming that pain medication had clouded her judgment, that I'd taken advantage of her vulnerability. He leaked selected portions to the press, making it sound like Eleanor had been an invalid who I'd controlled and manipulated. The character assassination campaign intensified. Amanda gave an interview to the local television station. I happened to catch it while flipping channels, and watching it felt like being stabbed repeatedly. She sat on a tasteful couch in the studio, wearing a modest dress that showed her small baby bump. Her makeup was done to make her look young and vulnerable. She touched her stomach frequently as she talked. "I just want what's best for our baby," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "Tyler works so hard as a teacher, and he's going to be an amazing father, but we're struggling. And meanwhile, his father sits on millions of dollars that Tyler's own mother earned. It's just not right. All we're asking for is a fair share, enough to give our child a good start in life." The interviewer, a young woman who clearly sympathized with Amanda, asked, "Have you tried to talk to Tyler's father directly?" Amanda nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We've tried. We've begged. But he's so controlling. He says he's keeping the money because his wife wanted it that way, but I think he's using it to control Tyler, to keep him dependent and small. It's emotional abuse, really." I threw the remote across the room. The battery cover popped off and skittered under the couch. I sat there shaking with rage and helplessness. Public opinion turned viciously against me. Someone spray-painted the word greedy on my garage door in red paint. My mailbox was knocked over twice. The church I'd attended for 28 years asked me to stop coming until the matter was resolved. The pastor, a man I'd considered a friend, told me my presence was causing disruption and making other congregants uncomfortable. I'd never felt so alone in my life. The worst part came during Tyler's pre-trial deposition. I wasn't allowed in the room, but Robert was there to represent my interests. He came back looking shaken. "They've coached him," Robert said. "Every answer was scripted. Tyler testified that you were emotionally distant his entire childhood, that you withheld affection and support, that you made him feel worthless and poor while you were secretly wealthy. He claims he's suffered psychological damage from your behavior." "None of that is true," I said, my voice breaking. "I loved that boy. I still love him. We went to every single one of his school events. I taught him to ride a bike, to fish, to throw a baseball. We talked every week even after he moved out." "I believe you," Robert said quietly. "But a jury is going to see a pregnant woman and a struggling teacher on one side, and a wealthy, elderly man who kept millions secret on the other side. It's not a good look, Keegan." Martha's private investigator friend kept digging into Gerald Thornton's background. What he found was disturbing. Thornton had 3 sealed complaints against him with the State Bar Association. Allegations of fabricating evidence, bribing witnesses, and intimidating opposing parties. One complaint had been filed by another lawyer who'd mysteriously dropped it and left the state shortly afterward. There were also connections to some questionable characters. Thornton's name appeared in federal surveillance reports related to organized crime investigations. He'd never been charged with anything, but he was known to law enforcement as someone who facilitated financial crimes for wealthy criminals. The investigator believed Thornton was running a larger operation, that Amanda was just one of several con artists he worked with to target wealthy families. But proving it in court was another matter entirely. The trial began on a hot morning in August. The courtroom was packed with reporters and curious onlookers. I sat at the defendant's table in my best suit, feeling every eye on me like accusations. Thornton opened with a presentation that painted me as a cruel, manipulative miser who had psychologically tortured his son while hoarding millions. He showed photos of Tyler's modest apartment, his old car, contrasted with photos of my house and property. He made it sound like I lived in a mansion, though my house was a simple 3-bedroom ranch that Eleanor and I had bought in the 90s. Amanda testified beautifully. She was an actress, I realized. A talented, practiced actress. She cried at exactly the right moments. Her voice trembled when she talked about worrying how they'd afford diapers and baby formula on Tyler's salary. She touched her stomach protectively, playing the role of scared young mother perfectly. When Robert cross-examined her, trying to bring up inconsistencies in her background, Thornton objected constantly. The judge sustained almost every objection. Robert couldn't ask about her previous marriages, her fake work history, or the Ohio incident. The judge ruled it was all prejudicial and irrelevant to the current case. Then Robert tried to present Patricia's evidence from Oregon, testimony about Amanda's pattern of behavior. Thornton objected again, and this time the judge went further. Counselor, this line of questioning is highly prejudicial. Unless you have direct evidence that the plaintiff has committed fraud in this specific case, I won't allow you to besmirch her character with unproven allegations from other jurisdictions. Robert argued that it established a pattern, that it showed motive and intent. The judge's face turned red. Counselor, I'm warning you. Drop this line of questioning immediately, or I'll hold you in contempt of court. Robert sat down, and I saw defeat in his eyes. We couldn't tell the truth. We couldn't show the jury who Amanda really was. The fix was in. The jury looked at Amanda with sympathy and looked at me with disgust. One woman in the jury box actually glared at me with such hatred that I had to look away. The judge ruled on the preliminary matters the next day. Despite every argument Robert made, despite the obvious problems with the case, the judge sided with Thornton on every single point. I find sufficient evidence of potential undue influence and financial manipulation, the judge said from the bench. Therefore, I'm ordering Mr. Walsh to pay $3 million to Tyler Walsh and Amanda Walsh immediately as an advance on what this court believes is a morally, if not legally obligated inheritance. Payment must be made within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges and potential incarceration. $3 million, 30 days, or jail. I was 67 years old with a heart condition. Jail would likely be a death sentence, and I still only had access to half my assets due to the freeze. Even if I liquidated everything I could touch, I might only be able to come up with $2 million. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I'd aged 20 years in 2 hours. Robert tried to be encouraging, said we'd appeal, but I could hear the hopelessness in his voice. The system had been rigged against me from the start. That night, Martha called me. Her voice sounded weak, strained. Keegan, I'm in the hospital. I had chest pains again. The doctors are running tests. I rushed to the hospital, guilt crushing me like a weight. Martha had been fighting for me, stressing herself, and now she was in a cardiac unit with wires and monitors attached to her. This is my fault, I said, holding her hand. I've brought this nightmare down on everyone. Martha squeezed my hand with surprising strength. Don't you dare give up, she whispered. Eleanor wouldn't want you to give up, and neither do I. But I was running out of options. I was being legally robbed, and everyone I loved was getting hurt in the process. 2 days after Martha was hospitalized, someone filed a criminal complaint with the state authorities. Gerald Thornton, naturally. He claimed I'd committed elder exploitation against Eleanor, manipulating her in her final days to extract her fortune. A criminal investigation was opened. A detective named Morrison was assigned to the case. He interviewed me for 3 hours, asking the same questions over and over in different ways, trying to trip me up. He seemed skeptical of the allegations, thank God. But he said he had to follow procedure. Mr. Walsh, I'll be honest with you, Detective Morrison said at the end of the interview. This complaint feels politically motivated, but if the state decides to prosecute, you could be looking at 5 to 10 years in prison for elder exploitation. At your age, with your health condition, I don't need to tell you what that would mean. He didn't need to tell me. I already knew. It would be a death sentence. I drove home from that interview feeling hollowed out, empty. Everything I'd worked for, everything Eleanor and I had built together, was being stolen by a con artist and her corrupt lawyer. And there didn't seem to be anything I could do to stop it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Eleanor's chair, looking at her photograph, and I actually considered giving up, just paying them, letting them win, and hoping they'd go away. Maybe it would save Tyler eventually. Maybe once Amanda had money, she'd leave him, and he'd wake up to the truth. But then I thought about Patricia's brother in Oregon, the couple in Ohio, all the other victims Amanda, or Sarah, or whatever her real name was, had destroyed. If I gave in, she'd just move on to someone else. The cycle would continue. At 3 in the morning I got an email. No sender name, just a string of numbers. The subject line said, "Meet me at the industrial park on Miller Road tomorrow at midnight. I have proof that will end this. Come alone or I go to Amanda." It was obviously a trap. Anyone with half a brain could see that. But I was desperate, grasping at anything that might save me, so I made a stupid decision. I was going to go. I spent the next day preparing, though I'm not sure what I was preparing for. Martha was still in the hospital recovering from what turned out to be a mild heart attack. The doctors said she'd be okay with rest and stress reduction, which made me feel even more guilty. I told her about the email when I visited her that afternoon. She gripped my hand hard enough to hurt. "Don't go," she said firmly. "Keegan, This is a setup. They're going to hurt you. I have to, I said. I'm out of options. If there's even a chance this person has real evidence, I have to take it. Martha made me promise to at least bring something for protection. I had an old canister of pepper spray that she'd given me years ago for when I went on evening walks. I promised I'd bring it, though I doubted it would help much if things went bad. That evening dragged by like molasses. I tried to eat dinner but couldn't taste anything. I watched the clock, watching the hours slowly crawl toward midnight. At 11:30, I got in my truck and drove toward the industrial park on Miller Road. The industrial park was on the edge of town, a collection of warehouses and manufacturing facilities that mostly shut down at 5 p.m. At night, especially at midnight, the place was deserted. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light across empty parking lots. The whole area had an abandoned, threatening feel to it. I found the address from the email, an old warehouse with a rusted metal door. My hands were shaking as I parked the truck. The pepper spray was in my jacket pocket. My phone was in my other pocket, though I wasn't sure who I'd call if things went wrong. The police? They already thought I was some kind of criminal. The warehouse door was unlocked. It creaked when I pushed it open, the sound echoing in the empty space. Inside was dark, except for a single light bulb hanging in the center of the vast room. Shadows stretched in every direction. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded small and frightened. A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a man, probably in his 40s, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around constantly. "Mr. Walsh? I'm Derek. I used to work with Gerald Thornton. I have documents that prove he and Amanda are running a scam operation, but I need protection. They'll kill me if they find out I'm talking to you." He held up a manila envelope. Even in the dim light, I could see it was thick with papers. "What kind of documents?" I asked, taking a cautious step forward. "Financial records, emails, proof that Thornton has done this before, that Amanda is part of an organized ring. Everything you need to prove your case." Hope surged in my chest. This could be it. This could be what I needed to save everything. I took another step forward, reaching for the envelope. Derek held it out toward me. That's when everything went wrong. 3 men emerged from the shadows behind me. I heard them before I saw them, heavy footsteps on concrete. I spun around, but they were already on me. The first punch caught me in the stomach, doubling me over. The second hit my face, and I felt something crack. Blood filled my mouth. I tried to fight back, tried to reach for the pepper spray, but I'm 67 years old, and they were young and strong. They beat me methodically, professionally. Ribs, face, kidneys. One of them grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back until something popped in my shoulder. Through the pain and fear, I heard one of them say, "This is a message from Mr. Thornton. Drop the lawsuit, or next time we kill you. Understand?" I couldn't answer. I was on the ground, my face pressed against dirty concrete, tasting blood and dust. They kicked me a few more times for good measure. I felt them take my phone, my wallet, the watch Eleanor had given me for our 30th anniversary. Derek, or whatever his real name was, just watched. He wasn't nervous anymore. He was smiling. Then they were gone. I heard their footsteps retreating, a door slamming, an engine starting outside. Then silence, except for my own labored breathing and the sound of blood dripping onto the concrete. I don't know how long I lay there. Time became strange, stretching and contracting. I tried to get up once, and the pain in my ribs made me black out. When I came to again, I managed to crawl toward where I thought the door was. Every movement was agony. Eventually, I heard voices. A security guard doing his rounds found me. I remember the shock on his face, heard him calling for an ambulance. Then I blacked out again. I woke up 36 hours later in a hospital bed. My jaw was wired shut from a fracture. 3 ribs were broken. My left shoulder was dislocated. I had a severe concussion. The nurse who checked on me looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. The police came. A different detective this time. A woman named Sergeant Hayes. She asked me what happened. I tried to explain through my wired jaw, speaking slowly and painfully, about the email, the setup, the attack. She looked skeptical. "Mr. Walsh, why would you go alone to an abandoned warehouse at midnight to meet a stranger?" When she put it like that, it sounded insane. I tried to explain about the lawsuit, about being desperate for evidence, but I could see she didn't believe me. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "Are you involved in something illegal? Drug deals? Gambling debts? Because this looks like organized crime activity." "No," I managed to say, through my damaged jaw. "Amanda, Her lawyer. They did this. Sergeant Hayes wrote something in her notepad. We'll investigate, but I have to tell you, this story sounds pretty far-fetched. A pregnant young woman and a prominent lawyer hiring thugs to beat up an elderly man? That's a serious accusation. She left, and I knew she thought I was lying or covering up something. I was the criminal in her eyes, not the victim. That afternoon, something unbelievable happened. Amanda and Gerald Thornton showed up at the hospital. They brought flowers, expensive ones, and a camera crew from the local news station. I was trapped in my hospital bed, couldn't run, couldn't even speak properly through my wired jaw. I had to lie there while they staged their performance. Amanda stood beside my bed, tears running down her face, touching her pregnant belly. "Oh, Keegan, I'm so sorry this happened to you. When we heard you were hurt, we were devastated. I know we've had our differences, but you're still family. You're still going to be this baby's grandfather." Thornton stood behind her, looking grave and concerned. "Mr. Walsh, in light of this terrible incident, and our genuine concern for your welfare, we're prepared to drop the lawsuit entirely. We just want you to be safe. If you're involved with dangerous people, we don't want to add to your troubles." The reporter ate it up, filming every moment. Amanda crying over my hospital bed. Thornton's magnanimous offer. They were painting themselves as the caring ones, worried about the elderly man who'd gotten himself mixed up in criminal activity. The story went viral online. The headline: Pregnant daughter, in-law offers olive branch to injured father-in-law despite ongoing legal battle. The comments section was full of people praising Amanda's compassion and questioning what I'd really been doing at that warehouse. My reputation, already damaged, was completely destroyed. I wasn't just a miser anymore. Now I was a suspected criminal who'd probably gotten what he deserved. After they left, after the cameras and flowers and fake tears were gone, I lay in that hospital bed feeling more hopeless than I'd ever felt in my life. Every breath hurt from my broken ribs. My jaw throbbed constantly. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional devastation. They were going to win. Amanda and Thornton were going to take everything, destroy me completely, and probably move on to their next victim. And my son would never know the truth. That's when the man in the next bed spoke up. His name was Frank, and he'd been so quiet I'd almost forgotten he was there. He was probably in his mid-70s, thin and pale, recovering from some kind of surgery based on all the equipment around his bed. "I know who you are," Frank said quietly. "I saw the news before they put me under for surgery, and I know your daughter-in-law." My heart monitor started beeping faster. "What?" I managed to say through my wired jaw. Frank smiled slightly. "I'm a retired FBI agent. Worked white-collar crime for 32 years before I retired. 10 years ago, I investigated a woman named Sarah Nichols, who ran inheritance scams all across the western states. We got close to catching her, but she disappeared. Had surveillance on her lawyer too, a guy who facilitated these operations. Never could prove anything solid enough to charge them." He paused, coughing into his hand. I noticed how thin he looked, how yellow his skin seemed. "Your Amanda is Sarah Nichols. I'm 99% sure of it. And her lawyer, Thornton? We had him under surveillance back then. Suspected he was part of a larger operation but couldn't prove it before they scattered." Hope flickered in my chest like a dying flame trying to catch. "Can you help me? Can you testify?" Frank's expression grew sad. "I'm dying, Mr. Walsh. Cancer. Pancreatic. They gave me 2 months, maybe 3. I'm in here because the damn disease is eating through my insides." He coughed again, harder this time. "But you know what? I've got nothing to lose. And I've always hated leaving a case unsolved. Those two have been running scams for over a decade, destroying families, and they've never paid for it." He reached for his phone on the bedside table with a shaking hand. "I kept files. Not official ones, you understand. The FBI made me destroy those when the case went cold, but I kept copies. Personal copies, just in case. And I've still got contacts in the bureau. Good people who'd love to finally close this case." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt a flicker of hope, and beneath it, a cold determination. "Help me," I said through my damaged jaw. "Please." Frank smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "Let's take these bastards down before I go. What else have I got to do with the time I have left?" Frank became my unlikely ally, working from his hospital bed, like a general planning a campaign. Despite the cancer eating away at him, despite the pain he must have been in, he spent hours on his phone making calls to former colleagues in the FBI. One agent in particular became crucial to our case. Her name was Jennifer Cruz. a sharp woman in her early 40s who specialized in financial crimes. When Frank explained the situation, she was immediately interested. "I've been tracking a pattern of similar scams across 6 states, she told us. During a video call, Frank set up on his tablet. Wealthy elderly people targeted through their children or grandchildren. Always the same method. Marry in, fake a crisis or pregnancy, extract money, disappear. But we've never been able to connect all the victims or identify the core group running the operation. This could be the break we need." Frank also reached out to an old partner of his named Ray, who'd left the bureau years ago to work in private cybersecurity. Ray was a genius with technology, the kind of guy who could find digital footprints that others missed. Within 3 days, Ray had gained access to Amanda's email accounts. I didn't ask how he did it. Frank just winked and said, "Some things are better left in the gray area, especially when we're dealing with criminals." What Ray found was explosive. Emails between Amanda, using several different names, and Gerald Thornton going back 3 years. They discussed targets, strategies, how much money they thought they could extract from each victim. They referred to me as the Connecticut job, and Tyler as the teacher mark. There were 8 other cases documented in those emails. 8 other families they destroyed. The total theft exceeded $12 million. They had a system, a formula they followed. Thornton provided legal pressure, while Amanda provided emotional manipulation. They'd split the profits 60-40, with Thornton taking the larger share. But the most damning discovery came when Ray accessed Amanda's real medical records through a hospital database. He found records under her actual name, Sarah Nichols. She'd had a tubal ligation 7 years ago. She was physically incapable of getting pregnant. The ultrasound image she'd shown Tyler was stolen from an online pregnancy forum. The baby she kept touching, kept protecting, kept using as emotional leverage, didn't exist. Had never existed. Tyler needed to see this. He needed to know the truth. But he still wouldn't take my calls, wouldn't respond to my messages. Martha, now released from the hospital but under strict orders to avoid stress, helped coordinate a meeting. She called Tyler and told him she was dying. It was a lie, but a necessary one. She said she needed to see him one last time, that she had things to tell him about his mother. Tyler agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near his school. I met them there, walking slowly, because my ribs were still healing. Tyler's face hardened when he saw me, but Martha grabbed his arm before he could leave. "Sit down, Tyler," Martha said firmly. "You're going to listen to what we have to say, and then you can make your own decision about whether to believe us." Tyler sat reluctantly, his jaw clenched, refusing to look at me. Martha slid a folder across the table to him. "Open it," she said. Tyler opened the folder. Inside were printouts of the emails Ray had recovered. Emails where Amanda discussed hooking the teacher and playing the pregnancy card. Emails where she and Thornton calculated how much they thought they could extract from the old man with the tech wife money. Tyler's face went pale as he read. His hands started shaking. "This could be faked," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Martha pulled out another set of documents. Side-by-side comparisons of the ultrasound. Amanda had shown Tyler and the original image from the pregnancy forum, complete with metadata showing the original post date was 2 years ago. Then, the medical records showing Sarah Nichols, with Amanda's photo, had undergone permanent sterilization. "She can't be pregnant, Tyler," Martha said gently. "She never was. It was all a lie to manipulate you." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. He flipped through the pages, hands trembling, his breathing getting faster. He got to one email where Amanda had written to Thornton, "The teacher is pathetically easy to manipulate. He actually believes I love him. Sometimes I almost feel bad, but then I remember the 45 million, and I get over it." Tyler made a sound I'd never heard from him before, something between a sob and a gasp. He stumbled out of his chair and ran to the bathroom. Through the coffee shop, I heard him vomiting. When he came back 10 minutes later, his eyes were red and his face was blotchy. He collapsed into his chair and looked at me for the first time in weeks. "Dad," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I reached across the table and took his hand. "My son. My boy. We're going to fix this," I said. "Together." Jennifer Cruz had been working with Frank and Ray to build a case, but she needed more. She needed Amanda and Thornton on record discussing their operation. That's when she proposed the sting operation. Tyler would wear a wire and confront Amanda at their apartment. The FBI would have surveillance set up outside. Tyler would try to get her to admit the truth, to talk about the scam. It was risky, especially if Amanda realized what was happening. But it was our best shot at getting solid evidence. Tyler was terrified, but he agreed. I need to know, he said. I need to hear her admit it. I need to understand how much of it was a lie. The FBI spent 2 days preparing. They fitted Tyler with a sophisticated wire that looked like a normal button on his shirt. They coached him on how to guide the conversation, how to get Amanda talking, without making her suspicious. The day of the confrontation, we all gathered in an FBI surveillance van parked 2 blocks from Tyler's apartment. I sat next to Jennifer, watching monitors showing different camera angles. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give out. Tyler went in. We heard his key in the lock, heard him call out Amanda's name. Through the hidden camera on his glasses, we saw Amanda in the bedroom, packing suitcases. "What are you doing?" Tyler asked, his voice surprisingly steady. Amanda didn't look up. "What does it look like?" "I'm packing." "Why?" "Because this job is getting too complicated. Thornton's getting nervous about that FBI agent friend of your dad's. We're cutting our losses and moving on." Tyler took a breath. "What about us? What about our baby?" Amanda laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. "Oh, Tyler, still playing the naive fool. There is no baby. There never was a baby." "What are you talking about?" Tyler moved closer, the camera capturing Amanda's face clearly. "I can't have children, Tyler. Haven't been able to for years. The ultrasound was fake. The whole pregnancy was fake. It was all just a tool to manipulate your stupid, stubborn father into paying up." "Why?" Tyler's voice broke. "Why would you do this?" Amanda finally looked up at him, and her face was completely different from the sweet, loving woman she'd pretended to be. This was cold, calculating, cruel. "Because you were an easy mark. A broke teacher with a rich daddy. Perfect target. Thornton found you for me, did the research. Your dad had $45 million, and you didn't even know. It was almost too easy." "Did you ever love me?" Tyler asked. "Even a little?" Amanda's laugh was harsh. "Love you? You're a teacher who makes $48,000 a year and thinks he's changing the world. You live in a crappy apartment and drive a car that's falling apart. Why would I love you? You were always just a means to an end, a way to get to your father's money." Every word was being recorded. Every admission. Jennifer Cruz was smiling grimly, taking notes. "So everything was a lie," Tyler said. "Our whole relationship. Every single bit of it. The way we met wasn't an accident. I engineered it. I joined your gym specifically because Thornton found out you went there. I made sure to bump into you, to drop my water bottle so you'd help me pick it up. The whole romance was a con, Tyler. And you fell for it completely." Tyler was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. "And the lawsuit? The claims about my dad manipulating my mom? All fake. Thornton's specialty. He's done this dozens of times. We make up a legal case, pressure the family. Usually they pay us off to make it go away. Your dad was tougher than most. I'll give him that. Most of them cave within a week." "What about the attack? The warehouse?" Amanda's eyes narrowed. "That was Thornton's idea. Scare your dad. Make him look like a criminal to the press. It worked pretty well, actually. You could have killed him." "Oh, please." The guys knew what they were doing. Just enough to hurt, not enough to actually kill him. We need him alive to pay us. That's when Tyler made his move. So all of this, the pregnancy, the love, the marriage, it was just about money. "Finally, he gets it," Amanda said mockingly. "Yes, Tyler. It was only ever about the money. Thornton promised we'd have the $3 million in a few weeks, and then I could disappear and find the next mark. You were convenient, that's all. And if I told you I knew the truth? That I've been recording this whole conversation?" Amanda froze. Her face went white, then red with rage. "What did you say?" Tyler backed toward the door. "FBI is listening, Amanda. Or should I call you Sarah Nichols?" That's when Amanda pulled a gun from her suitcase. In the surveillance van, Jennifer Cruz was already moving, yelling orders into her radio. "Hostage situation. Subject is armed. Move in now." Amanda grabbed Tyler, pressing the gun to his head. "You think you're smart? You think you've won?" She was looking directly at the camera on Tyler's glasses, as if she knew we were watching. "Tell your FBI friends that Tyler dies unless Keegan brings me $5 million to the Miller Road warehouse in 1 hour. Just him. No bureau, no police. Or I put a bullet in your son's brain." She ripped the camera glasses off Tyler's face and smashed them. Our video feed went black, but we could still hear audio from the wire in Tyler's shirt. We heard struggling, Tyler crying out, Amanda saying, "Move," in a harsh voice, then a door slamming, then nothing. The audio feed went dead. Jennifer was on the phone immediately, coordinating with SWAT teams. But Amanda was smart. She'd taken Tyler somewhere else, not the warehouse she'd mentioned. We'd lost them. My son was being held at gunpoint by a woman who had nothing left to lose. The next hour was the longest of my life. FBI agents swarmed Tyler's apartment building, interviewing neighbors, checking security cameras, trying to find where Amanda had taken my son. Jennifer Cruz's team tracked Amanda's phone, but she'd turned it off. Tyler's phone, too. Frank, who'd checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice, sat in a wheelchair in the corner of the FBI operations center. He looked terrible, pale and thin, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "She'll want to make a trade," Frank said. "Money for Tyler. But she knows once she gives Tyler up, she's got nothing left to bargain with. She's trapped, and trapped people are dangerous." Amanda called my phone directly 30 minutes after she'd taken Tyler. Jennifer had the call traced and recorded. "Keegan?" Amanda's voice was tight with stress. "I know the FBI is listening. I don't care anymore. You bring me $5 million cash, or I kill your son. You've got 1 hour starting now." "I can't get $5 million in cash in an hour," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Be reasonable. I don't care how you do it. Borrow it, steal it, pull it out of whatever accounts you've got. 1 hour or Tyler dies." She hung up. Jennifer looked at me. "We can't let you do this. We can't negotiate with hostage takers." "He's my son," I said. "I don't care what the protocol is. I'm going. We can't guarantee your safety. I'm 67 years old with a heart condition. If I die trying to save my son, that's a better death than most people get." Frank wheeled himself closer. "I'm going too." "Frank, you can barely sit up," Jennifer protested. "I'm dying anyway. Let me do something good with the time I've got left." He looked at me. "You'll need backup. And I'm still a pretty good shot, even from a wheelchair," Jennifer argued, but Frank and I were both determined. Finally, she agreed to let us stage the money drop, but insisted on having snipers positioned and a tactical team ready to move in. We accessed my emergency funds, the accounts that hadn't been frozen. We loaded $5 million worth of bearer bonds and cash into duffel bags. It took 45 minutes to arrange everything. By the time we were ready, we had 15 minutes left on Amanda's deadline. My phone rang again. A different address this time, not the warehouse she'd mentioned. An abandoned factory on the other side of town, one that had been empty for years after the company went bankrupt. "Smart," Frank muttered. "She's changing locations to throw us off." Jennifer got her team moving, but it would take time to reposition. The snipers needed to get into place. The tactical unit needed to approach without being seen. I might be going into that factory alone for the first few minutes. I drove there with Frank in the passenger seat of my truck. He had his old service weapon, a 9mm that he'd kept after retirement. I had the duffel bags in the back seat. "When we get in there," Frank said, "stay calm. Let her focus on the money. That's when she's most vulnerable, when she thinks she's getting what she wants. That's when my people will take the shot." We pulled up to the factory. It was a massive concrete structure, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls. The front door was hanging open. I grabbed the duffel bags. Frank maneuvered his wheelchair out of the truck with surprising agility for someone so sick. We went in together. The interior was vast and empty, with old machinery rusting in corners and debris scattered across the floor. In the center of the space, under a skylight that let in pale moonlight, stood Amanda. She had Tyler in front of her with a gun pressed to his temple. Tyler's face was bruised. She'd hit him. His eye was swollen, and there was dried blood on his lip. But he was alive. "Keegan," Amanda called out. "And you brought the dying FBI agent. How touching." "I brought the money," I said, my voice echoing in the empty space. "Let Tyler go. Put the bags down and back away. Tyler will bring them to me." I set the bags down and stepped back. Tyler started walking toward Amanda, dragging the bags with one hand while she kept the gun on him. That's when Gerald Thornton appeared from the shadows with 2 men. I recognized them immediately. They were the ones who'd beaten me at the warehouse. They were armed. Thornton looked at Amanda with cold contempt. "I'll take it from here, Sarah." Amanda looked confused. "What are you talking about? We're partners." Thornton laughed. "Partners? You're a tool, Sarah. I use tools and discard them when they're no longer useful. Did you really think we were going to split this money and run off together?" He nodded to his men. They pointed their guns at Amanda. She spun, keeping her gun on Tyler, now trapped between multiple threats. "You bastard," Amanda hissed. "We had a deal. Deals change." Thornton grabbed the duffel bags. "I'm taking this and disappearing. You, Keegan, and Tyler can kill each other for all I care. I'll be on a plane to a country with no extradition treaty before the FBI even figures out where I went." That's when Frank made his move. Despite being in a wheelchair, despite the cancer, despite everything. He pulled his weapon and aimed it at Thornton. FBI, drop your weapons. All of you. Thornton's men turned their guns toward Frank. We had a Mexican standoff. Frank aiming at Thornton, Thornton's men aiming at Frank, Amanda still holding Tyler with her gun. Frank was smiling, actually smiling. Buildings surrounded, Gerald. You're not going anywhere. It's over. One of Thornton's men fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. But FBI snipers fired first, through the broken windows. Both of Thornton's men dropped before they could get off a second shot. Amanda used the chaos to run, but she made the mistake of pulling Tyler with her. Tyler, who'd been passive until that moment, suddenly fought back. He was younger, stronger, and motivated by weeks of betrayal and lies. He twisted, grabbing her gun arm, and they went down hard on the concrete. The gun went off. For a terrible moment, I thought Tyler was hit, but the bullet struck a concrete pillar. Tyler wrestled the gun away from Amanda and scrambled back from her. Thornton tried to run with the bags, but Jennifer Cruz and her team burst through every entrance. They'd been waiting for the right moment. Thornton made it maybe 10 feet before Cruz tackled him like a linebacker. The duffel bags went flying, cash and bonds scattering across the floor. It was over in maybe 30 seconds. Amanda was on the ground, FBI agents cuffing her. Thornton was face down with Cruz's knee in his back. The two gunmen were dead. The building was full of federal agents, and the sound of radios and shouted commands. I ran to Tyler, my ribs screaming in protest. He collapsed into my arms, and we both sank to our knees. He was crying, his whole body shaking. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see it. It's okay, I said, holding him tight. You're safe. It's over. But it wasn't quite over. I heard a commotion behind us, and turned to see Frank being loaded onto a stretcher. He'd been hit. The bullet meant for him had struck his chest. Blood was spreading across his shirt. I rushed to his side. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. But he was still conscious, still trying to smile. Worth it, he whispered. Tell my daughter I went out doing something right. You're going to be fine, I lied, tears streaming down my face. Frank shook his head slightly. Not this time. But we got them. We finally got them. His eyes closed. The medics worked on him frantically as they carried him to the ambulance, but I could see it in their faces. Frank was dying. He died on the way to the hospital. Jennifer called me an hour later to tell me. A man I'd known for only a few weeks, a dying stranger who'd become an unexpected hero, had given his life to save my family. The arrests made national news. Amanda and Thornton were charged with multiple federal crimes: fraud, extortion, kidnapping, racketeering. The corrupt judge who'd been helping them was arrested the same night. More arrests followed as the FBI unraveled their entire operation. 17 victims across 8 states were identified. It was the biggest white-collar crime bust in Connecticut history. Tyler moved back home with me while he processed everything. The marriage was annulled within a week. He'd been married to a fiction, to a character that never truly existed. He started therapy, working through the trauma of being manipulated so completely. We had dinner together every night. Sometimes we talked about Eleanor, sharing memories Tyler had never heard. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence. Slowly, we rebuilt what Amanda had almost destroyed. 6 months later, the trial was over. Amanda, whose real name was confirmed to be Sarah Nichols, was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. Thornton got 35 years plus restitution payments, totaling $18 million from his seized assets. The judge got 15 years and was disbarred. My money was fully restored, plus damages paid from Thornton's hidden accounts. The civil lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. My name was cleared, though the process of rebuilding my reputation in the community took longer than the legal proceedings. Martha recovered fully from her heart attack. She actually started dating someone she met in cardiac rehab, a retired engineer named Bill who made her laugh. Almost dying gave me perspective, she told me. Life's too short to be alone if you don't have to be. Tyler took a leave of absence from teaching to focus on healing. One evening, about 8 months after everything ended, we sat on my back porch watching the sunset. He'd been quiet most of the day. I've been thinking about Mom, he said. About the inheritance. About what she wanted. What about it? She was right. If I'd known about the money when I was younger, it might have changed me. Made me lazy or entitled, or made me a target for people like Amanda earlier, when I wasn't smart enough to see them coming. Your mother was a wise woman. I want to do something good with it. When the time comes, I mean, after you, in the future. He struggled with the words, not wanting to talk about my death. What are you thinking? A scholarship fund. For teachers. People who choose careers helping others, even though the pay is terrible. And maybe legal aid for families who get targeted by scams like what Amanda and Thornton were running. I felt such pride in that moment I thought my chest would burst. Your mother would love that idea. We established the Eleanor and Frank Memorial Foundation a month later. I put $2 million into it to start. Tyler sat on the board, along with Frank's daughter, a woman named Lisa, who'd been devastated by her father's death, but immensely proud of what he'd done in his final days. The foundation provided legal aid to victims of inheritance scams. In the first year alone, we helped 40 families. 1 year after everything fell apart, I stood at Eleanor's grave with Tyler beside me. We brought yellow roses, her favorite. The autumn sun broke through gray clouds, warming the cemetery with golden light. I wish I'd known her better as an adult, Tyler said, placing the roses carefully at the base of her headstone. She knew you. She loved you more than anything in this world. And she wanted you to earn your own way in life, to be strong, to have character. I put my hand on his shoulder. You proved her right. You came back from being deceived, from being manipulated. That takes real courage, son. I learned it from you, Tyler said. You never gave up. Even when everyone turned against you, even when it looked impossible, you kept fighting for the truth. We stood there together, in comfortable silence. I felt Eleanor's presence somehow, felt her approval. Everything she'd worried about, everything she'd tried to protect us from, had come true in the worst possible way. But we'd survived it. We'd protected what mattered. Thanks for not giving up on me, Dad, Tyler said quietly. Never. That's what fathers do. We fight for our children, no matter what. We walked back to my truck together. The autumn sun warmed my face, and for the first time in over a year, I felt at peace. The money was still there, safely invested. But it wasn't the money that mattered. It was never about the money. It was about family, about truth, about standing firm in the face of lies and manipulation, about the people who stand with you when everything falls apart. Eleanor had been right to want the money kept quiet. Money attracts predators, brings out the worst in people who see it as an easy score. But if you stand firm in the truth, if you surround yourself with people of integrity, if you never give up, even when the whole world seems against you, justice prevails in the end. I learned something important through all of this. Wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the people who fight beside you, in sons who find their way back from deception, in dying FBI agents who use their last days for justice, in sisters-in-law who risk their health to help you, in the community that eventually comes to understand the truth. The $45 million Eleanor left behind was supposed to be my security, Tyler's future. But the real inheritance, the one that truly mattered, was the lesson she'd tried to teach us all along. Character matters more than cash. Truth matters more than comfort. Family matters more than fortune. Tyler turned to me as we reached the truck. I'm proud to be your son, Dad. I'm proud of the man you've become, Tyler. Your mother would be too. We drove home together, as the sun set behind us. Life wasn't perfect. We both still carried scars from what we'd been through. But we'd survived, and we'd survived together. That night, I sat in Eleanor's chair and looked at her photograph one last time before going to bed. We did it, I told her. We protected him. He's going to be okay. I swear I could see her smile. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone in your life try to manipulate you or someone you love for money? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched you, if it made you think about what really matters in life, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing extraordinary challenges. Share this with someone who needs to hear that standing firm in truth is always worth it, no matter how hard the fight becomes. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that family, real family, built on truth and love, is worth fighting for. Take care of each other out there.